Hey there, viewers. What if I told you a leaked rehearsal clip of Beyonce, secretly recorded by her own daughter, didn't end in scandal, but in one of the smartest power moves we've ever seen? From whispers to a worldwide lesson in greatness, here's how she turned chaos into art. Chapter 1. The Green Dot. I never thought I'd be in a place like that, not in a million years. I'm not a dancer, not a singer, not even someone who knows much about music beyond what plays on the radio when I'm driving. But that night, I was standing inside Hall B at this huge rehearsal complex in Los Angeles because my cousin works in lighting and she'd convinced the crew to let me tag along. She called it low-key, but the second I stepped in, it didn't feel low-key at all. Hell, I thought my low-key at all. The smell hit me first. This mix of fresh gaffer tape, something almost like lemon cleaner, and that faint burnt smell from stage lights that had been on too long. The floor was this smooth black surface she called Marley, and it had a shine to it that reflected every bit of overhead light. The air felt thick but not heavy, more like it was buzzing. People weren't exactly running around, but everyone had this quiet focus, moving like they'd done it all 100 times before. I kept to the side because I didn't want to get in anyone's way. My cousin pointed towards some road cases stacked along the wall and told me I could sit there. They were hard, but I didn't care. I was just trying to stay out of trouble. There were wires taped down across the floor in neat lines, and in one corner a little black Pelican case was open with a tablet resting on top. The tablet's case was bright pink, with stickers all over it, cartoon animals, a little holographic star, and one sticker that said "Breathe, baby" in rainbow letters. That's when I saw it, a little green dot glowing on the corner of the tablet screen. I leaned forward just enough to read it. The voice memos app was open, and the top file said, Hall B counts. The words were plain, no fancy labeling. It looked like the way kids name things when they don't overthink it. Just what it is, maybe with a little side note in parentheses. I figured it was someone's practice recording, maybe for a school project or something. Before I could even process what I was looking at, the sound started playing. It wasn't loud, just enough to make me notice, because it came from the tablet speakers, not the main hall system. First was a series of short ticks, perfectly spaced, like a metronome. Then a clap, sharper and louder, followed by the squeak of sneakers sliding a little on the Marley floor. There was the faintest echo in the room, almost like the sound bounced off the high ceiling before it reached me. Then her voice came through. Not singing, talking. Beyonce. It wasn't the voice I knew from music videos or interviews. This was different, closer, more direct. She was counting beats, telling someone to reset from the top. Her tone was warm, but firm, like she knew exactly what she wanted and had no doubt they could do it. I could even hear the faint hiss of her in-ear monitor when she paused between words. She said, "Breathe," on the 4. Just like that. No extra explanation, no long speech. Just the exact thing they needed to fix. It's hard to explain, but hearing that made the whole room feel smaller, like the air pulled in tight around her words. You could tell she wasn't guessing. She'd done this so many times that the precision was just muscle memory. In the background, someone's water bottle cracked open, with that little pop sound from the seal breaking. A zipper scraped against a mic stand, shoes shifted, the Marley floor giving off that rubbery squeak again. Every little detail was there. Like the mic picked up more than just voices, it picked up the whole mood. I kept looking at that green dot. The recording time ticked upward, slow and steady. It was only about 30 seconds in, but I could tell it wasn't staged. It felt like catching something mid-breath. The kind of thing you only hear if you're actually in the room. Then I remembered. My cousin had told me the pink tablet belonged to one of the kids who sometimes came along during rehearsals. She didn't say which one, and honestly, I didn't want to know. I just knew it was a family device. And if it was recording, it was probably because the kid liked to save little moments, maybe for fun, maybe to remember dance steps. Thought about stopping it, but the screen dimmed and I figured maybe it wasn't my business. It wasn't until the next morning that things got strange. I was sitting at a cafe when my phone buzzed with a text from a friend. "Is this the rehearsal voice?" was all it said, with a link to a short video on some fan account. I tapped it, and there it was. The same voice I'd heard on the tablet, the same breathe on the floor, the same squeak of shoes. But this clip was only 14 seconds long. The caption read, "When the Queen coaches, you listen." The video didn't show her face, just the audio over a blurry shot of the rehearsal floor. Still, people were eating it up. Comments were split between calling her a perfectionist and praising her for being such a hands-on leader. I knew right then what must have happened. That tablet synced to family sharing. If the kid recorded it, it would automatically show up on any device linked to the same account. Maybe one of those devices was used at school. Maybe a classmate saw the file and thought it was interesting. Maybe they airdropped it to someone else. Airdrop to everyone is like leaving the front door wide open. From there, it's not hard to imagine it landing in the hands of someone who'd post it. I didn't know which daughter recorded it, and I didn't want to guess. It was enough to know it came from inside the family. And that's where the moral knot hit me. Part of me felt like it was wrong to listen, like I'd wandered into a room without knocking. But another part of me couldn't ignore how fascinating it was. This tiny, unpolished window into how someone at her level actually works. I thought about the voice memos list I'd glimpsed on the screen earlier. The one at the top said Hall B counts, but there were others below it. Lullaby try, steps 2, chorus run high note. Each one was like a breadcrumb, leading deeper into a process nobody outside her circle usually hears. I kept picturing the pelican case in the corner, the pink tablet resting on top. The talkback mic was about 5 feet away, angled just so, the cord taped neatly to the floor so no one would trip. The whole setup looked casual at first glance, but you could tell it was arranged with care. Even the stickers on the tablet case told a story. Fun, kid-like, but still part of a space where serious work was happening. I didn't post anything about what I'd seen or heard. I just sat there with it, the sound looping in my head. That little moment. Beyonce's voice, the rhythm of the click track, the clap of the choreographer, felt like it had its own gravity. Later that day, more versions of the clip started popping up. Some had captions praising her discipline. Others were trying to frame it as cold or harsh, which didn't make sense to me at all. I'd been there. I'd heard the warmth in her tone, the way she spoke like she expected the best because she knew they could give it. I realized then that the internet would twist anything. A simple rehearsal note could become whatever story people wanted it to be. And here I was, holding the truth in my memory, wondering if it was even my place to correct them. I didn't know what she'd do next. Would she ignore it? Would she try to scrub it from the internet? Or would she find a way to take it back, to make it hers again? For now, all I knew was that someone, her daughter most likely, had captured a moment without meaning to share it, and yet here it was, bouncing around online, picking up new meanings with every repost. It was strange to think that something so small, a green dot on a tablet, could set off this whole chain of events. I kept hearing her voice in my head, steady and certain. Breathe on the 4. Chapter 2. The 22nd War. By morning, the clip wasn't just a clip anymore. It was 100 versions of the same 14 seconds wearing different outfits. My friend sent me another link while I was brushing my teeth, and then a cousin sent me a third one while I was digging for clean socks. By the time I got to the bus stop, the video had been cropped, stretched, slowed down, captioned, and stitched into a dozen reactions, from people who sounded like they were on a panel show none of us agreed to watch. I kept telling myself to put my phone away. I kept not doing it. The first version I saw had white block letters stamped on top that said, "Be cold to the team," like they wanted to decide the mood for you before you even hit play. It ran those same beats I'd heard in the hall, except they cut off the shuffle of shoes and that little breath right before Beyonce spoke. They kept only the part that made the caption make sense, the clean command, the line that everyone could debate like it was a head. It played on a loop, and the loop made it feel colder than it actually was, like letting a single sentence echo down a long hallway. When I scrolled again, the second version came from a page that only posts rumors. They'd laid the audio over a slideshow with big red warning symbols, and halfway through they dropped in a photo from that private Dubai show that had a strict no phones policy. The caption told a half story. No phones then, no phones now, but leaks leak. They didn't say it was the same night or even the same year, but they knew the picture would do the heavy lifting. The comments took the bait. People started talking like they had been there. People always talk like they have been there. The third video was the one that changed my stomach. It claimed there was a second clip. The creator kept saying the longer version, like if they said it 3 times it would appear. They did that thing where they zoom in to a random corner of a blurry frame and pretend they are revealing something secret. You can hear it if you listen, they said, and then played the same 14 seconds again. I had to stop and close my eyes because it made me feel like I was on a boat that wouldn't anchor. When I finally put my phone down, the bus had already come and gone. I called a rideshare and sat there in the back seat with my bag on my lap, trying not to refresh, and then refreshing anyway. The comments split into lanes like traffic merging. One lane said this was proof she was a helicopter mom, the kind who hovers and controls. Another lane called her a master teacher, the kind who notices the breath that changes the whole step and saves everyone from sloppy work later. I recognized that second lane because that was how it felt to me in the room. But I also saw the first lane. The people who needed her to be cold because cold fits the shell they put around anyone who is that famous and that prepared. Industry folks chimed in like they thought they could calm the storm by naming it. "That's rehearsal," a choreographer wrote. "This is nothing." A background singer posted a story saying, "You should hear the greats rehearse. It sounds like Focus." Those posts floated around for a while. And then the sea swallowed them, because the internet doesn't like calm water. Someone asked if gentle parenting meant never correcting a kid, and someone else said excellence culture is just an excuse for meanness, and soon it wasn't even about the clip. It was about everyone's home and everyone's childhood and everyone's favorite way to feel right about something. By lunch, an account that only posts mom content had put up a long caption about how kids learn more from correction wrapped in care than from soft words that say nothing. Another account made a carousel of screenshots with the title, "Let Her Be a Mom," talking about how the public forgets that the woman we see on stage makes school lunches too. Underneath that, a different account wrote, "Protect her kids," in all caps like a siren. People shared that one the most. It made everyone feel like they were doing something by pressing share. In the mess of it, I started noticing old stories getting pulled back into daylight like boxes from a garage. The photo scrubbing thing from years ago, the no-phone rumors from certain shows. Folks threaded those into this moment like beads on a string and held it up as a pattern. Even the way they said pattern felt sharp, like a small knife. I don't know why it hit me wrong, but it did. Maybe because it made the clip feel less like a real sliver of a real night, and more like a bullet point in a slideshow someone had been waiting to give. My group chat lit up with guesses about which child recorded it, and I felt my chest go tight. I typed, "Let's not guess kids," then deleted it, then typed it again and hit send. Someone replied with a heart. Someone else said, "You're right." And then a minute later they sent a screenshot from a gossip thread that was already naming names, already drawing arrows to blurry photos, already turning a family into a flowchart. I stepped outside and leaned against the building wall, trying to feel air that wasn't recycled by my phone. The sky was bright and plain and good for nothing except reminding you that time is passing, even if you don't do anything with it. I told myself I wasn't going to refresh for an hour. I lasted 9 minutes. When I checked again, there was a stitched video where two people argued on split screen about whether the clip was kind or cold. They hadn't been there. They didn't have the floor smell and the zipper scrape and the squeak of shoes in their bodies like I did. They had the same 14 seconds and a need to be loud. By mid-afternoon, I started seeing something else. A few of the reposts I'd saved were gone. The videos didn't play anymore. The accounts posted notes like, "Content removed," or nothing at all. It wasn't a flood. It was precise, like the board was being cleared one tile at a time. I don't know who sent what emails or what messages. I just know the internet never empties itself by accident. It left enough fragments to keep the classroom going. It took back enough to make you feel watched. Parkwood wasn't talking out loud. They didn't have to. My inbox filled up like someone had opened a fire hydrant. One message said, "Yo, you were there, right?" Another said, "If you have the full clip, we can mask your username." A third said, "We pay for exclusives." A fourth just said, "Send." The worst one had a smiley face with sunglasses and a note that read, "We can make you a hero to the hive." I let that one sit there like a fruit I wasn't going to eat. I saw the preview of another message from a page with a blue check mark and too many followers, asking me if I would confirm the longer memo. I didn't open it. I didn't want to say anything to anyone that would become a screenshot. When I finally did open one, it was from a mid-sized gossip account that had been polite to me once when I posted about a concert. They said, "We are hearing the original memo is 61 seconds. They wrote it like it was a police report. They said, "Sources claim a sing-through of a new ad-lib is audible at second 38. They asked me to confirm." I looked at my ceiling and felt the old familiar wish that I had stayed home last night. I typed, "I can't help you," and hit send. They replied with a simple, "Understood," and a little hourglass emoji that made me want to throw my phone into the sink. Every refresh brought more captions, like a chorus with the parts slightly shuffled. "Be as boss," "Let her be a mom," "Protect her kids," "Best coach alive." I watched them stack into a collage in my head. It was almost funny how the same words could make people feel like they were on opposite teams. It was like watching folks line up for jerseys. I started writing out what I remembered in a notebook that had grocery lists and phone bills scribbled in the margins. I wrote the sentence, "Breathe on the 4," and underlined it twice. I wrote the words, "room smell," and "sneaker squeak," and "zipper scrape," and "water bottle cap," and "in-ear hiss," and "metronome click." I wrote down that the voice was steady. I wrote down that it felt kind. I didn't write the kids' names anywhere. I kept my notes in the kitchen drawer next to the spare batteries and the tape, because I wanted something in my life to stay normal. A coworker called me on my break and asked if I had seen the latest claim. I told her I hadn't, and she read it out loud anyway. An anonymous insider said the original was a minute long. They said it included a rough sing-through. They said the last note hinted at a new key change. The words stacked high like a tower built from sugar cubes. They looked like structure from far away. They melted if you touched them. "No proof," I said. "No link to anything," she said. We sat there breathing into the phone. Then she asked if I thought it could be true. "Anything could be true," I said. "But that doesn't make it ours to see." By late afternoon, the mommy blog pages were fighting with the Stan accounts like two families arguing in the same living room. One post said, "Gentle parenting doesn't mean no boundaries." Another said, "Excellence culture hurt me." People dropped their stories into the comments like pebbles into a glass bowl until the bowl sounded like something else entirely. I stopped reading for half an hour and washed dishes that didn't need washing. Soap and water have a way of telling your body you can fix small things with your hands, even when you can't fix the big thing. When I got back to my phone, my cousin had texted me a picture from inside Hall B, just the corner where I'd sat the night before. The Pelican case was closed in the photo. The pink tablet was not there. The talkback mic stood where it always stood, like a person at attention. She wrote, "Quiet today." I stared at the picture and felt a tug in my chest that I couldn't name. Relief, maybe, that the kid's tablet wasn't sitting out anymore. Sadness, maybe, that the room had to change it all. At dinner, my uncle asked why Beyonce was trending again, and my aunt said it was because people don't want to let famous women be human. I said I didn't know. The truth is, I did know. I had watched the machine spin up from the first minute. I had watched the edits arrive like sparrows on a wire, all in a row, pretending they were each unique when they were all pecking at the same crumb. I had watched the predictions about legal action roll in like weather forecast. Lawyers incoming, one user wrote as if they could hear them in the distance. They will wipe this, another wrote, as if the internet has an eraser that leaves no streaks. The whole day felt like a tutorial on how fast a moment becomes a debate and how much faster a debate becomes a business. I told myself I would not become part of the business. I told myself I would not forward the link to anyone else. I told myself I would not post a take. I made tea that I did not drink. I opened the voice memos app on my own phone and scrolled past the recordings I'd made for silly reasons, like the sound my car made when it needed a new belt, or my nephew saying, "banana weird." Ordinary life is full of small recordings. That thought landed in my stomach with a soft thud. Ordinary life is 1,000 small recordings, and most of them never leave the places where they make sense. Before bed, I took screenshots of the captions I kept seeing so I could remind myself how the day had built itself. One was just bold letters over a gradient that said, "Be as boss." Another used a gentle pink background and cursive font to write, "Let her be a mom." A third had a black banner with white text that shouted, "Protect her kids." A fourth had a clean serif with "Best coach alive." 4 messages, 4 moods, 4 ways to stand somewhere you hadn't been invited to stand. I saved the screenshots and put my phone face down on the nightstand. It buzzed again. A new DM from a big account, this one more formal. "We heard you were present at Hall B," it said. "Would you be able to provide the full audio for verification?" The word verification made me laugh out loud, not because it was funny, but because it was so careful. They were offering me a certificate in return for trading a piece of my conscience. I imagined the green dot on that pink tablet from the night before, the simple file name, the kid logic of it, chorus, counts. I imagined the list under it. Lullaby try, steps 2, faster, chorus, run, high note. Little ideas boxed up in a small screen. I typed back, "No," and then turned off my notifications. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the building, the kind of sound you only notice when you are trying not to hear anything else. I thought about how quickly a story can harden in people's minds. I thought about how little things become symbols and symbols become shields. I thought about how last night the sentence, "breathed on the 4," felt like it belonged to a private room, and now it was printed on memes and argument threads and open letters. There was a word for that feeling, but I didn't know it. I only knew that privacy is a kind of air, and once the door opens, the air goes somewhere you can't get it back from. I left my phone downstairs and went to brush my teeth again, just to reset my head. In the mirror, I looked like a person who had spent too long looking at other people's screens. I told myself I wasn't going to let my day 2 become part of their day 2. Tomorrow the internet would move on, or dig in deeper. It always does, one or the other. I can't control that. I can only control the small choices in front of me, like not feeding someone else's rumor fire. like remembering the warmth in her voice instead of the cold captions someone stapled on top of it. Like keeping one thing for myself in a world that wants everything. Right before I turned off the bathroom light, I pictured Hall B again. The marley floor, the taped-down cables, the talkback mic waiting in the same spot even when no one speaks. The room would be there again tomorrow, even if the internet turned it into a different place in our heads. Rooms have a way of being themselves, no matter what we say about them. I held that thought like a little coin in my pocket. Then I got into bed and went to sleep. Chapter 3. Blues Rule. By the third day, the focus had shifted. It wasn't just the clip anymore, it was who might have made it. The guesses were running wild, but every time someone said a name, someone else jumped in to shut it down. The truth is, the internet can't leave a mystery alone, but it also loves to act like it's protecting the very thing it's dissecting. That's how I first started seeing what people were calling Blues Rule. The idea that in her world, nothing gets recorded for drama, only for the work. It started as hearsay. Someone on a fan forum said their cousin used to dance for Beyonce years ago, and that Blue had a habit of filming bits of rehearsal to study the counts later. Not for social media, not for bragging rights, just to watch over and over until the steps lived in her body. Another person, this one a moderator in a private group, claimed there was actually a shared playlist of counts recordings that got passed around for practice. No one ever produced the playlist, but the way they said it made it sound possible. Believable in the way all the best rumors are. No hard proof, but easy to picture. I could see it in my head. Blue sitting on the edge of the floor, her hair pulled back, a phone balanced in her lap. Watching her mom run through steps with the dancers, tapping record when something needed to be locked in. Not spying, not sneaking, just documenting, the way anyone serious about a craft does, collecting the little pieces that make the big picture work. That's the part most people forget. She's not just the daughter. She's someone who's already been on stage in front of tens of thousands of people and learned what it feels like to be picked apart for it. The first time she performed during the Renaissance tour, there were clips of her going around with captions about her moves being stiff or her counts being off. And instead of hiding, she came back stronger, sharper, with more confidence every single show after. That doesn't happen without work. Recording rehearsals, that's just another tool. And if I'm being honest, this wouldn't even be the first time family audio made it into the public eye. On purpose. Rami's voice opens the song Protector. Her little request, "Can I hear the lullaby, please?" threaded right into the melody. It wasn't treated like a scandal, it was an aesthetic choice. A family moment woven into art. Like a photo tucked into a frame. But this wasn't an album track. And it wasn't carefully chosen. This was a short voice memo that slipped through the cracks, and that's where the knot in the timeline gets tricky. If a kid recorded it at 6 in the evening, maybe they meant to keep it for later review. On an iPad or phone tied to the family iCloud, it would sync automatically to every linked device. That means the next morning when someone opened a school iPad or a laptop, there it would be, counts, sitting in the list alongside homework notes or a math assignment. One click to play it, and maybe a curious classmate nearby hears the voice. That's where AirDrop comes in. AirDrop to everyone is like tossing a paper airplane into the wind. Anyone close enough can catch it, and if that person thinks it's interesting, they can send it again, or worse, post it. From there, the chain is short. School Wi-Fi doesn't care about privacy. A single careless moment is all it takes for a private file to become a public conversation. My mind turning it over in my mind. Was this a breach or an accident? Did anyone even realize it had escaped until the clip was already bouncing around online? And here's the question that stuck to me more than anything else. When excellence lives at home, can home ever really be private? If the kitchen table is also a desk, And the living room is also a practice floor. Where does off-limits start? For Parkwood, the stakes were obvious. If they saw it as a breach of child privacy, they'd come down hard. The clip would vanish from every platform they could reach, maybe even get scrubbed from accounts that barely had any followers. But if they saw it as harmless, just a little piece of rehearsal noise, they might take a different route. They might decide to reclaim it, frame it as part of the story, fold it into the art like Rumi's lullaby. That's the thing about rules in a family like theirs. They're not always written down, but they're there. Maybe Blue's rule is exactly that. Record if it helps, keep it in the circle, and never let it become a weapon. When I pictured that pink tablet again in my head, I also pictured what the file must have looked like in the app. The tiny wave-form lines bouncing across the screen in green and gray, showing where her voice landed, where the counts came in, where the clap hit just before the next move. In the middle, the tallest line of all, her voice saying, "Breathe on the 4." That sentence would be easy to spot, even without playing it, just from the shape. I imagined that same line scribbled on a note card in thick marker and taped to a mirror in the dressing room. 4 words, no decoration, there to be read and remembered until it became second nature. The kind of thing you keep repeating until it stops being advice and just becomes part of how you move. It made me think about how thin the line is between intention and consequence. If the recording had stayed in the circle, it would have been nothing but a practice tool, one of dozens. But once it crossed the line into the public, it became a symbol, an argument, a headline. It wasn't made for us, but now it was being passed around like it belonged to everyone. I don't know who pressed record. I don't know if they even remember doing it. But I know what it's like to keep little bits of sound because they matter to you. Because they hold something you want to keep working on. And I know what it's like to have something small turn into something much bigger than you ever meant. Blue's rule might not be real in the way the internet thinks it is, but after seeing the way this all played out, I kind of wish it was. Chapter 4. Forensics of a Whisper. By the time the 4th day rolled around, the clip had stopped being just a clip. It had turned into an artifact, a kind of public puzzle piece people were determined to solve, whether there was anything left to solve or not. I woke up to my feed full of screenshots of spectrograms, those bright rainbow graphs audio engineers use to see sound instead of hear it. Except now they weren't being used by engineers. They were in the hands of strangers on Twitter and TikTok who were convinced they'd uncovered hidden messages inside 14 seconds of rehearsal audio. One post had zoomed in on a faint line under the main vocal spike, circling it in red and writing, "You can hear a manager code word here." They claimed it was something like green light, the sort of secret instruction that supposedly only insiders would understand. Another swore they heard someone crying in the background. A third person said they picked up a kid's laugh, light and quick, right after the line, "Breathe on the 4." None of them had proof, just the kind of confidence that comes from wanting to be the one who notices the thing no one else did. I sat at my kitchen table with my headphones in, listening again. All I heard was the same voice, steady and measured, layered over the click of the metronome and the soft shuffling of sneakers on the marley floor. If there was a second voice under there, it was probably just the bleed from the talkback mic picking up someone further away. The way the room was shaped made every sound travel a little before it settled. The walls in Hall B aren't just flat. They have spots where the sound bounces twice, giving it a flutter echo that makes it feel like something's answering back even when no one is. People online weren't interested in that kind of explanation. They wanted something deliberate, something loaded. The HVAC hum in the background? To me, it was the steady sound of the air system keeping the room cool under all those lights. To them, it was a frequency bed, masking other conversations. The click track at exactly 120 beats per minute, normal for a rehearsal, especially for dancers. But in one thread, someone claimed that tempo matched a visual cue for sphere shows, even though the clip didn't come from anywhere near the sphere. The most surreal false lead came from an account that swore a street name was whispered halfway through. They played it 3 times in a row and then posted the words, "Hear it now," as if repetition could make it real. When I isolated the section myself, all I heard was a count and a step. 5, 6, step, breathe. No street, no secret, just the language of rehearsal that sounds strange if you don't know it. Moving on, he added, I screamed a 6-step, breathe, no street, no rehearsal. That sounds strange if you don't know it. Then came the one that made my stomach drop. Someone had taken the original clip and re-pitched it. They claimed the adjustment revealed a crude line tucked underneath the main voice. The edit went viral fast, and by the time anyone pointed out that the hidden words didn't line up with the mouth movements in other footage from the same night, it didn't matter. People had already filed it away as fact. This wasn't just bad detective work, it was fabrication, a deep-faked enhancement designed to twist the clip into something uglier. I thought about the difference between analysis and projection. Analysis is when you look at what's actually there and try to understand it. Projection is when you pour your own story into the gaps and call it the truth. This clip had become a projection screen, and the brighter people shined their own theories onto it, the less of the real thing anyone could see. The consequences weren't just about accuracy. The more people enhanced the audio, the more it blurred the line between the original and the tampered versions. If you've got 100 edits floating around, each claiming to be the real one, how do you even begin to defend the original? And if the voice in question belongs to someone's private rehearsal, not a staged performance, every fake edit raises the stakes for the person whose voice it is. That's when the privacy question stops being theoretical. I kept picturing 3 waveforms lined up on a screen. The first, the original 14 seconds, with its clear peaks where the counts hit and that taller line for breathe on the 4. The second, an alleged minute-long version that was stitched together from pieces of other rehearsals, its shape a Frankenstein's monster of mismatched spikes. The third, my own cleaned version, where I'd removed a bit of hiss and background rumble, but left the timing untouched. Side by side, you could see how much people were willing to distort just to make a point. What bothered me most wasn't even the bad edits themselves. It was how sure people became after watching or listening to them. I've seen it before, how enhanced culture works. Someone takes a fuzzy detail, boosts it until it's sharp enough to look like something, and then acts like the sharpening is proof it was always there. In reality, the process often creates the detail it claims to uncover. But once it's in front of you, your brain wants to believe it. It's satisfying to think you've spotted the secret. And once you believe you've spotted it, you start telling other people about it. You post your own screenshot, your own cropped waveform, your own theory. The cycle feeds itself. Soon, you've got hundreds of tiny communities all convinced their version is the version, and none of them can agree because none of them started from the same unaltered source. That's when I understood why an official response might actually be necessary. Not because the original clip was damaging, it wasn't, but because the noise around it was growing into something that could be. Every day it stayed out there, more doctored versions appeared, each one making the real one harder to find. And every time someone saw one of those edits without knowing it was fake, it chipped away at the idea that the moment had ever been as simple as it was. Sitting there with my headphones on, I played the original one more time. I didn't look at any graphs or waveforms, I just listened. The voice was calm, the click track kept time, a shoe squeaked softly across the floor. Somewhere in the back, the air system hummed on. That was it. No whispers, no code words, no hidden insults, just work. But I knew that for most of the internet, the work was already invisible. They weren't listening for it anymore. Chapter 5. She did this. By the time the week was halfway through, the internet had started to look different. Not quiet, never quiet, but sharper, neater, like someone was trimming around the edges. A few of the bigger reposts of the clip just weren't there anymore. Not the messy, chaotic flood you'd expect from a legal sweep. This was precise. The biggest accounts that had been fueling the conversation suddenly had blank squares where the video used to be. Smaller pages were left untouched, almost as if someone wanted just enough noise to keep the buzz alive, but not enough for it to spiral again. I noticed it first with one of the caption versions, the one with the block letters reading "Be cold" to the team. Gone. The page didn't even post a note about removal, which told me all I needed to know. Then another, "Best coach alive." Same fate. The posts didn't die, they were taken. That's how Parkwood operates. Not a broom sweeping the whole floor, but a pair of tweezers, pulling out only what matters to their strategy. By Wednesday morning, the whispers in fan spaces weren't about the clip anymore. They were about the tour stop scheduled that night in Houston. People were guessing there might be a statement. Others said she'd ignore it completely. Me? I figured if she was going to do anything, it wouldn't be a statement. It would be something you had to experience to understand. And I was right. That night, halfway through the show, right before Protector, the stage went dark, except for a single, warm amber spotlight. The giant screen behind her flickered to life with white text on black. Mother tongue. A soft, unpolished audio clip started playing. A child's voice, small but curious. "Mom, why do rehearsals take so long?" The crowd let out that half-laugh, half-sigh people make when something catches them off guard in a tender way. Then Beyonce's voice came in, live and on mic. Not the booming stage tone, her talkback voice. "Because excellence," she said, pausing just long enough for it to land, "is a hug you practice." It wasn't a lecture. It wasn't a clapback. It was warm, quotable, and sharper than any denial could have been. A line so clean it could live on a t-shirt, a coffee mug, a headline. She gave the internet a new soundbite to pass around. One she chose. On the screen, a short video played. Slow-motion rehearsal footage, not the leaked clip, not even the same day, just moments of dancers repeating a step, kids sitting on the floor with water bottles, her counting with her hands as she moved. The lighting was all amber and gold, the kind that makes skin look alive and hands look steady. Over it, her voice continued, "We do it until it's ours, and when it's ours, it's yours." The lower third in the corner of the video read, "Audio courtesy of Family Archive." The word family was capitalized, deliberate. In the credits that scrolled at the end, there it was, written by B. Knowles Carter, C. Carter. No one in the crowd needed to Google the second name. Blue's name on the screen made the arena erupt. You could almost feel the pivot happen in real time. What had been an unauthorized recording story was now an official family moment story. The same tone from the leak, precise but caring, was right there, wrapped in intentional lighting, balanced sound, and ownership. For the rest of the show, I kept thinking about the business side of that credit. A name in the writing line means royalties. Even if it's just a symbolic cut, it's a signal. It says, "This came from us, and we decide where it goes." Fans were already talking about it before the concert ended, saying the credit was proof she'd turned the whole thing into a win. And it worked. By the next morning, the conversation online had shifted almost completely. The merch table from the Houston show had sold out of a new design before the encore. A simple black shirt with "Breathe" on the fore in white script across the chest. That phrase, born in the leak, was now her phrase, on her fabric, sold under her name. Someone posted a mock transcript of the interlude that got tens of thousands of likes. Child: "Mom, why do rehearsals take so long?" Beyonce: "Because excellence is a hug you practice." crowd cheering. In the comments, people were saying how it made them cry, how it reminded them of their own parents, their own teachers, their own work ethic. What had started as something pulled without permission had become a source of reverence. I went back and watched videos from that night. Fans had uploaded dozens already. You could see the lighting cues if you paid attention. The way the single amber spotlight stayed on her while the video played behind. The soft fade into full stage lights as Protector began, as if to say, "The lesson's over, now we live it." For me, it was the line in the corner, audio courtesy of Family Archive, that stuck. It was a quiet statement, but it said everything. This wasn't something stolen anymore. This was something shared. Consent replaces voyeurism. A rumor becomes an heirloom. That's what she did. She didn't fight the leak with anger. She didn't ignore it and hope it would die. She absorbed it, reshaped it, and released it on her terms. The original clip was a pebble. She turned it into a stone in the foundation of the show. Watching it all unfold, I couldn't help but think how rare that kind of pivot is. Most people react. She authored. And in doing that, she didn't just control the narrative. She gave it back to the person it belonged to in the first place. When I saw the shirt online that night, I almost bought one, not because I needed more merch, but because it felt like owning proof that sometimes the right answer to a breach isn't to build a higher wall, it's to build a better door. Chapter 6. Mothers, Daughters, and the Comment Section. After the Houston show, the noise softened. Not gone, but not so sharp. The conversation shifted into something slower, like people had caught their breath and were now ready to decide what it all meant. That's when the comments section started splitting into neat, predictable lanes. One lane belonged to parents, and they were loud in their certainty. "This is how you teach and protect," one wrote under a fan-captured clip of the interlude. "You guide them, you show them the right way, and you don't apologize for holding them to a standard." A mom on TikTok posted a reaction video with her kid in the background, both of them nodding along. "She's raising her kids the way I raise mine, firm but loving. You can feel the care in her voice." Then there was the other lane, the haters. "It's image control," they said. "This is all PR cleanup." They picked apart the lighting, the pacing, the choice of words. Warm amber spotlight? Family Archive credit? That's branding, not authenticity. The comments had that familiar tone, not curiosity, but the kind of skepticism that doesn't want an answer, only an opening to keep doubting. And in between, you had the industry people. Dancers, singers, crew members from other tours. "That's what rehearsal always sounds like," one wrote on Instagram. "You count, you correct, you keep going. The greats, they're the same every time, focused." Another chimed in, "If you can't handle someone telling you to breathe on the 4, you're in the wrong business." Those comments didn't go viral, but they stuck in my head because they came from people who actually live that world. Mixed into all this, someone reposted an old interview clip of Tina Knowles. She was defending her daughter back then over a totally different rumor, but the sentiment fit perfectly here. She talked about how invasive the public can be, how easy it is for strangers to decide they know your family better than you do. She didn't name names, didn't get dramatic, just drew a line. Watching it again made me realize this isn't the first time they've had to push back against people wanting to peek into their lives and label what they see. And that's what kept circling in my mind. If a kid recorded something out of love or habit or just wanting to help, do we, people who weren't meant to hear it, have any right to keep passing it around? Does the intent behind the recording matter, or only the fact that it got out? I'm not pretending I was immune to it. The clip made me lean in. The first time I heard it, I played it twice. I wanted to catch every little sound. Even after I saw what the internet was doing to it, part of me still wanted to study it again, to remind myself how it felt in that room. But I also knew where my line was. I didn't repost it. I didn't send it to anyone who didn't already have it. And when I started talking about it here, I made a decision about what to show and what to keep to myself. There's a list in my notebook titled What We Didn't Show. It's short but important. The half-second laugh before the take started. The shuffle of a younger kid moving closer to the stage. A line from a background dancer that was probably just an inside joke. I left them out because they didn't belong to me, and because the more I watched the internet eat itself alive over the clip, the more I realized restraint is a choice you have to keep making, not a one-time decision. I think about Blue in all this, how she's grown under a spotlight that never really turns off. She started as the kid the internet doubted and mocked, and she became the young performer the same people cheer for. That kind of evolution doesn't happen without some scars, but it also doesn't happen without resilience. And then there's Rumi, whose voice was woven into a song with care and intention, not ripped from a rehearsal memo. Those are two different kinds of exposure, one on the family's terms, the other on the public's. The truth is, they've already drawn their own boundaries. You can see it in what they share and what they never let out. But the internet doesn't respect boundaries. It tests them. Every leak, every rumor, every screenshot is a push to see if the line can be moved just a little further. When I look at the comment sections now, I see that quiet culture war playing out. On one side, people who believe public women, especially at the top, have to be twice as careful because their mothering will always be judged as much as their work. On the other, people who think everything they do is for the brand, so there's nothing to protect. And floating between them are the ones who actually know what it's like to live in rehearsal rooms, who understand that sometimes a count is just a count, and a correction is just a correction. I don't know if the internet will ever agree on which side is right, but I do know that for me, the moment I heard "breathe" on the 4, it didn't feel like a scandal. It felt like a glimpse into a process, one I wasn't really supposed to see. And that's why I've kept some of it tucked away, even now, even after she's reframed it in her own voice. Because some things can stay ours, even when the rest of the world wants a piece. Chapter 7. The Second Recording. It dropped on a Sunday afternoon, which is exactly when you think nothing's going to happen. I was halfway through folding laundry when my phone lit up with 3 notifications at once. Group chat, Twitter, Instagram, all pointing to the same thing. A new behind-the-scenes reel on Beyonce's official YouTube channel titled Hall B, Rehearsal Warm-Up. At first I thought it was just a generic tour diary, the kind they post between shows to keep the momentum going. But the thumbnail told a different story. A still frame of the same hall where I'd sat on that Pelican case, only now the shot was in warm, cinematic lighting. In the bottom left corner, the word "official" sat in white block letters like a stamp. The video opened on a wide shot of the stage. You could see the marley floor gleaming under the lights, cables taped down in perfect lines, dancers stretching in the background. The camera panned left to a talkback mic and a pink tablet on a case. And then there it was, the voice. Not the clipped 14-second leak everyone had been dissecting, but the full moment, framed, colored, and intentional. Beyonce was standing in the middle, hands on her hips, counting softly with her breath. "Breathe on the 4, she said, but this time you saw what happened before and after. Before, she demoed the step, exhaling in time with the beat so the dancers could hear it. After, a small giggle from off-camera, one of the kids. The choreographer clapped twice, not to correct, but to encourage. Beyonce smiled, turned toward the source of the laugh and said, "Let's try again, baby," with that same fond firmness the internet had been arguing about all week. You could even hear the metronome tap-tap in the background, steady at 120 beats per minute, just like I'd remembered. Only this time, it wasn't stripped of its warmth. The hug in her voice was there, clear as day. Halfway through the reel, the screen flashed for just a second to document a split sheet. The names were blurred, but at the bottom you could make out a tiny credit, Field Recording C. Carter. It was quick, almost playful, like a wink at the fans who'd been spinning theories about Blue's involvement and royalties. The comments were already exploding with freeze frames and screen grabs, people yelling about the receipt. The edit itself was masterful. It didn't deny the original clip existed, didn't scold anyone for listening. It just showed the rest of the sentence. And when you see the whole exchange, the so-called cold moment becomes just the middle of a warm, productive minute. A comma, not a period. Watching it, I felt something shift. I realized we'd all been treating an unfinished thought like it was the whole story. We'd cut off the breath that came before, the laugh that came after, and called it personality. The doc gave us the punctuation we'd been missing. In one sequence, the camera zoomed in on a kid's sneaker stepping in time with the beat, the laces swinging slightly with each move. Then a shot of a hand squeeze Beyonce's hand on the kid's shoulder, a quick squeeze before turning back to the mic. Then the grin, wide, genuine, the kind that doesn't survive a freeze frame without losing something. Each little moment felt like a quiet rebuttal, not with words but with proof. And that's the thing. This wasn't a takedown, it was contextualization. Parkwood didn't come out with lawyers or threats. They came out with editing. They didn't erase. They reframed. It was a lesson in how you can change a conversation without ever raising your voice. Within hours, the ripple effects started showing. The snark accounts that had been milking the cold narrative began posting clips from the reel instead, tagging it with captions like, "This is how you handle a leak," and "Context matters." Comment sections softened. People admitted they'd judged too fast. Some still stuck to their original takes, but you could feel the temperature drop. The doc ended with a full run-through of the move, metronome ticking, dancers locked in sync. The final frame was that pink tablet again, this time the recording light off, resting on the case like it had never caused a stir at all. Underneath, the lower third read, "Audio and footage courtesy of Family Archive." It was the same quiet claim as in Houston. This belongs to us, and now we're choosing to share it. I watched it 3 times in a row, not to study it like before, but to take in the whole shape of the moment. It was like breathing after holding your breath for a week. Chapter 8. Fade to room tone. 3 days after the reel dropped, I found myself back in a studio. Not Hall B. This one was smaller, dimmer, without the constant hum of people moving cables or setting lights. The floors were scuffed, the mirrors a little cloudy from years of fingerprints. Everyone had cleared out 20 minutes earlier, and I stayed behind because I wasn't ready to step back into the noise outside. It was quiet, but not silent. That's when I noticed the room tone. Not music, not conversation, just the faint hiss that lives in the air when a space is holding its breath. It's the sound of light fixtures buzzing low, air vents breathing steady, the wood underfoot adjusting to the shift in temperature. I'd never paid much attention to it before, but now it felt like the outline of something invisible, the kind of sound you can only hear when everything else has stopped. I sat down on the floor and pulled out my phone. The bootleg clip was still there, tucked between screenshots of tweets and a few notes I'd made for myself in the first days of the leak. I played it once, just to be sure I remembered exactly how it sounded. Sharp, intimate, incomplete. Then I deleted it. No backup, no second guess. What I kept was the official interlude from the Houston show. I'd saved a fancy's full video of it. The amber light, the warm tone in her voice, the way the crowd cheered at the phrase, "Excellence is a hug you practice." That felt right to keep. That belonged in the stay pile. So did the lesson. You don't always have to fight noise with more noise. Sometimes you fight it by showing the whole picture. By the end of that week, something unexpected happened. Fans started posting their own 30-second recordings of empty rehearsal rooms and practice spaces, just the quiet. No songs, no performances. They tagged them with "Count with me," as if to say, here's what it sounds like before the work begins or after it's done. Some were ballet studios with faint creaks from the bar. Others were garages with soft hums from fluorescent lights. The trend wasn't about Beyonce anymore. It was about reframing rehearsal as something beautiful in itself. That's the part that stuck with me. A leak moment had been reshaped, then echoed out into the world as an invitation. What started as someone else's private work had turned into a kind of shared ritual. And I think back to the title of this whole story. Beyonce was secretly recorded by her daughter, and she turned it into a classroom the whole world could visit. I realize it's not just a headline. It's exactly what happened. The classroom wasn't in Hall B or on the stage in Houston. It was in the way people started listening differently. Before I left the studio that night, I recorded my own 30 seconds of room tone. Just the low hiss, the faint air vent, a chair settling somewhere in the corner. I posted it with one line: practicing patience. And if you're listening to this right now, here's my challenge to you. If you're wearing headphones, record 30 seconds of the quiet in your workspace. Post it with one sentence about what you're practicing. Let's fill the feed with work, not rumor. Because when excellence is a family language, maybe privacy isn't silence at all. Maybe it's just a rest in the score, waiting for the next note to begin.